台积电否认获得美国许可向华为出售芯片。华为将把荣耀系列出售给神州，其理由是要专注做中高端手机市场。国家网信办将规定禁止平台未经用户同意不得强制关注其他账户。今年玉米期货价格涨幅超过40%，现货遭抢购。继华为之后，美国司法部要重新评估中国联通的美国业务。胡锡进挑衅美国之音，质疑自己在中国的影响力。哈尔滨国企轴承厂破产，人去楼空，这种失败的制度在中共国大肆扩大，只为了控制经济、垄断资源。厦门出现海水倒灌的怪异天象。10月18日，海南三亚受连续强降雨影响，出现洪涝灾情。云南昆明街头小贩因工成疾，经常晕倒，迫于糊口，在小摊上挂牌声明晕倒后，请路过好心人叫醒自己，并且不会给他人添麻烦。中共为给自己续命，让洗脑渗透在生活的方方面面。用爱国的口号购买华为，但实际行动购买苹果，赤裸裸的嘴上说着不，身体很诚实。
今天是2020年10月6号，我来到了那个北京市第2中级人民法院，我给他们送奖来了。包庇奖，
叫包庇奖。
他们看着那个案件不开庭，那判决书上连法官的名字都没有，他们互相包庇，完了以后胡说八道，枉法裁判，这就是天子脚下的法院，这是北京市第2中级人民法院。大家看看啊，枉法裁判，不开庭就宣判，而且奇葩的是判决书上都连法官的名字都没有，这叫什么叫判决书啊？
赵立坚驳斥中共外交官打台湾外交官的行为言不及义，竟称贼喊捉贼。环球网登载台湾绿媒报道，中共军机骚扰台湾，美侦察机同一时间在巴士海峡周围。环球网报道称，美国禁止发展中国家使用华为，将提供贷款和其他资金。中共只敢在海南岛内陆进行实弹训练。中共拍军事宣传片来威胁台湾，实则不敢动手。 2020年10月18日，这系列品牌旗下的 G Club 正式上线，开启人类消费方式新起点。
The number of total cases reported around the world is nearing 40 million. That's according to Johns Hopkins University, whose figures show more than 1.1 million people have died from the virus. The number of new cases worldwide rose on Friday by more than 400,000, the most since the start of the pandemic. Half of the new cases were in Europe, where there have been an average of 140,000 cases a day over the past week. France has had the highest daily average at more than 19,000, followed by the United Kingdom, Russia, Spain, and the Netherlands.
Senator, I want you to connect the dots for us in terms of national security risks. That's why you started this investigation in the first place, to check for any national security threats. Are there national security
remember,
issues?
everybody, can you imagine the national security threat, the threat of blackmail against the sitting president if these connections are true? Well, take whatever was alleged that was proven false against President Trump and multiply that by orders of magnitude of just what we've scratched the surface in terms of uncovering of this vast web of connections with Chinese nationals, ties to the Chinese Communist Party, the People's Liberation Army. I said that our report raised far more questions than it answered. This requires detailed investigations on the part of the Justice Department, on the part of the FBI, on the part of the media, and that's not occurring. So why is this being covered up? Why is this not being talked about? This is a major news story because if you have all these vast webs, all these connections, this could be used as blackmail against a potential Biden presidency far in excess of anything that was ever alleged against Donald Trump.
Twitter and Facebook censoring a New York Post report critical of Hunter Biden. The Senate is now calling for the CEOs of Twitter, Facebook, and Google to testify. Senator, thanks for being here with us. Let's start with this. What do you want to hear? What will you be asking these tech CEOs?
Well, they're going to be coming before us on October 28th. At Commerce Committee, we had actually subpoenaed them, unanimous vote from the committee, a couple of weeks ago, and now they've decided to appear voluntarily. So what we are looking at is Section 230 and the reforms that are going to be necessary for Section 230. Now, this deals with that liability protection shield that big tech has been hiding behind and censoring, using to censor conservatives, censor many of our entertainers. And this is one of the things that our legislation, the Online Freedom and Viewpoint Diversity Act, which Chairman Wicker and Chairman Graham have each joined me in this legislation. What we would do is turn that shield back into something that is transparent by saying, here is when you can use it, here is when you cannot use it, and being explicit in that. Also,
yes,
defining who's a content creator and moderator.
A chilling new report warning the U.S. about China's vow to take Americans hostage if the DOJ doesn't drop its prosecution of Chinese scientists. The Wall Street Journal reporting, quote, the Chinese message has been blunt. The U.S. should drop prosecutions of Chinese scholars in American courts, or Americans in China might find themselves in violation of Chinese law. What the U.S. is saying is that these scientists concealed from immigration authorities their active duty status with the People's Liberation Army. Therefore, we've detained them. Should we take seriously that China will do the same to Americans?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, this was so-called visa fraud. These are actually research scientists, as you indicated, associated with the People's Liberation Army, here to do what? To spy. They're here to conduct espionage. They got caught at it, and they've been arrested. China wants to retaliate. They've done this kind of retaliation with the Canadians right now. They got 2 of them arrested for a Chinese executive from Huawei who they have arrested. And they also have done it with the Australians and the Swedes. The difference is we're arresting spies. What China will likely do is detain Americans who have done nothing. Yes. They are not guilty of anything. So in that sense, it's not like the Cold War with the Soviet Union. We arrested their spies, they arrested ours, and we exchanged them at some point. So, yes, when you started out, Pete, and said they're hostages, that would be an appropriate description of what the Chinese intend to do.
Do you have early concerns about the fact that Hunter Biden might have forgotten to pick up water-damaged laptops from a repairman? And how did you satisfy yourself that this was what happened?
Here's how I satisfy myself. His lawyer, Mesries, from Chicago, one of the top lawyers in the country, emailed us and said, and we had the email. He called the repair shop. He sent us an email, or he sent the repair shop an email that he sent us right away saying, I got to get Hunter's, Hunter dropped these off. At the same day he talked about, he forgot to pick them up. I got to get them right away. What have you done with them? Right? That's an email. And a phone conversation he had at the repair shop. Everything about that's a lie. Okay? It's not like somebody's misreading. It's a lie. It's a lie. This repairman, when he didn't come back, it's abandoned property by law in Delaware. If you don't come back in 90 days, he went to the FBI and gave them to the FBI. We got him much later. But the question for us is, why did the FBI not move on this immediately? When the FBI got it, two things would have happened. This was back in the fall or November, December of 2019. Number one, Donald Trump would have never been impeached. If you get the information out of this lab, there's no impeachment trial. And therefore, we could have focused on the Chinese Communist Party plague. We could have focused on the pandemic instead of worrying about the impeachment, number one. Number two, Bernie Sanders would have been the Democratic nominee. If any of this information had come out, and by the way, there's much more horrible information. There's really horrible information that's about to come out. But if any of this information had come out at the time, Joe Biden had been finished in the Democratic primary, finished. So once again, the FBI has protected the neoliberal neocon candidate. They protected Hillary Clinton in 2016, and Bernie Sanders lost. They protected Joe Biden in 2020, and Bernie Sanders lost. So it just shows you the corruption of our institutions here in the United States. It doesn't matter who you change out. They're rotten to their core.
Fox is now off that. They said they have absolute verification for somebody in the email chain. Not only was the email real, right, not from Russia, it was real, but not just that, but that the equity ownership splits. When they talked about the big guy, he says, oh, yeah, that was Joe Biden, no doubt about it. So, Rudy, talk about how the Chinese Communist Party works and how these influence operations, the campaign last night came out at, late at night and said, hey, Joe Biden's been compromised. That's a word we've been using for a couple of weeks here. He's been compromised by the Chinese Communist Party. Put your U.S. attorney's hat on when you ran the Southern District of New York before it was a corrupt political operation, according to Barr, headhunting Trump's political allies, present company excluded, right? Talk to us about how deep is the Biden family compromised by the Chinese Communist Party?
They're owned by the Chinese Communist Party, Steve, and it's been quite a while. It's not new. Let me just add to the fact that it's verified. I did it myself. Now, Steve, I'm not an amateur at this. I put the about 200 mafia members in jail based on 4,000 hours of tape recordings. So I know how to do this. I also helped to establish the first FISA court, and I probably approved about 100 FISA wires myself. So I know what I'm doing. I have internally verified this about 3 different ways. And by the way, Hunter Biden verified it. Before this ever appeared publicly, when there was a call from, I think it probably was the Post to the Biden family, immediately Hunter Biden's lawyer called the source and asked to have this hard drive back. So yes. Basically, that's an admission. The lawyer's an agent of
we've never released those emails. We've never released those emails we have, but we're holding those back of of Hunter Biden's lawyer reaching out in desperation to get it back. We've held that back because we want to make sure they walk into the trap and then close it hard after.
They've done it. I mean, they've done it. I mean, they've done exactly what we thought they would do. You put a little out, they deny it, you prove it's untrue, and now this time we got them about. Well, if I was trying the case, 4 false exculpatory statements. Let me give you an idea of what they're going to be walking through. There are still about 18,000 texts and emails to go, and 24,826 photographs. I'm not going to say they're all incriminating, but there are plenty of them. For example, that whole situation with the 10%, you don't even need a witness to verify it, because what they don't know is following that email, about 3 later is an email in which they give out the keys to the new Chinese office. The first key is given out to Joe Biden. The second key is given out to Jill Biden. Now, what are they doing with offices in a business that's half owned with their son, their brother, their sister-in-law? What are they doing in that office if they don't have an interest in it? Let's make sure, the memo says, that Joe and Jill get the first keys. And then it says 10% for the big guy. I don't know. If I were trying that case, I put those 2 things together. I think a jury comes to the conclusion it's Joe Biden. And if there's an eyewitness, if there's a witness, well, then I don't know, about time to plead guilty, I think. The fact is, he's asking to be president of the United States. And he was a partner as recently as a year ago with the Chinese Communist government of China. And his family has gotten, I can count, about $30 million in the last 4 years from the Chinese Communist government. His son was in partnership with
the $30 million, but that also tees up a partnership that could be hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars. That partnership, the equity splits, means a much bigger participation.
Oh, without any doubt about it. I mean, there are Ukrainian prosecutors who our embassy is not allowing to come to the United States, who are willing to testify that Biden has offshore accounts. And they have not been able to get the cooperation of the United States government to discover those offshore accounts. There are 5 other witnesses in Ukraine that our embassy, present embassy, is refusing to give a visa to, who will testify that Biden was bribed by Mykola Zlochevsky, offered upwards of $20 million paid through his son in order to fix Zlochevsky's case, to get him out of trouble in Ukraine. So what Hunter Biden really is a bag man.
未来是我战斗的理由。舍去爱恨情仇，破去抛在脑后，对自由对中共不言不休。爆料革命这碗酒，敬天，敬地，敬战友，新中国联邦人永不为奴。跟我走。神仙养蛊现大仙，咱走走看。
截至周一，全球已超过4000万人感染了 CCP 病毒，死亡人数超过了110万人。巴黎和其他8个城市的宵禁在10月17日生效，将持续4周，这将影响到2200万人。西班牙政府于周五开始在马德里及其周边地区实行为期15天的紧急状态。为抑制病毒传播，意大利强制要求全国室外场所必须佩戴口罩。波兰将体育馆改建为首家冠状病毒临时医院。马来西亚周日报告了871例新增感染病例，这是自病毒爆发以来单日最高的纪录。专家说，接下来的6至12周将是整个病毒大流行最黑暗的时期。国泰航空宣布，今年前9个月的旅客减少了83%。
Dear mama, are you okay over there? Your son is crying and missing you, and sees you in his dreams. You said take down the CCP, cause it's God's will, it's God's will. So I'll wait for you, and I'll see you when we end the CCP, yeah. So